All right, so today we're really going to deep dive into something crucial for flying.
Absolutely.
Weight and balance.
Yeah.
Now, I know some of you might be thinking, really, that sounds boring.
Right.
But trust me, this is the kind of stuff that makes a difference between a smooth flight
Right.
and
Well,
real disaster.
yeah, it's not just numbers on a page.
Exactly.
It's about, understanding how every pound you put in that plane
Yeah.
affects how it flies, how it handles emergencies.
Yeah, think about it.
Yeah.
You're trying to take off.
Right.
And you've overloaded just a bit.
Yeah.
Suddenly, you need way more runway.
Absolutely. And it gets really scary in those critical situations.
Yeah.
Like an engine failure on takeoff.
Yeah.
That extra weight suddenly becomes a huge liability.
Well, and the source material we're looking at today really gets into it.
Yeah, this 12FAK10.pdf document.
Yeah.
It doesn't just give you the theory.
Right.
It throws you right into those real-world scenarios where those decisions about weight and balance
Yeah.
really become life or death.
It's interesting because I always knew, weight affected performance,
Right.
obviously.
Sure.
But this document,
Yeah.
it has these examples, if you exceed the limits even a little bit,
Yeah.
your landing gear could collapse on landing,
Absolutely.
which is,
It
terrifying.
really brings it home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It makes it real.
Exactly. And it's not just about knowing what those limits are,
Right.
but understanding why.
Yeah.
Why those limits exist.
Yeah. Why are those limits there?
Yeah.
Why does every pound matter so much?
Well, think of it this way.
Okay.
Every aircraft, right,
Yeah.
is designed to handle certain stresses.
Uh-huh.
And if you go beyond those limits,
Yeah.
you're pushing that aircraft to its breaking point.
So as a pilot,
Right.
you're not just
Right.
battling weight.
Battling gravity.
You're battling gravity the whole time you're up there.
Exactly.
Which,
You're constantly fighting that downward pull.
so we keep hearing about this
Well,
center of gravity,
Yeah.
CG.
CG.
It's always shifting.
It's always shifting. Yep.
So what does that actually mean?
So imagine like a seesaw.
Okay.
Classic analogy, right?
Yeah.
But if you have one person who's much heavier,
Right.
that seesaw tips.
Uh-huh.
Same thing in an aircraft.
Okay.
If the CG is too far forward, you're nose heavy.
Yeah.
You might struggle to even get off the ground.
Like you're going to be plowing through the runway.
Yeah, exactly. If it's too far back.
You risk a tail-heavy situation,
Uh-huh.
and then stalls
Right.
become way more dangerous,
Yeah.
potentially unrecoverable.
So it's not just about
Okay.
balance on the ground. It's
Okay.
about maintaining control
It's throughout the entire flight.
the whole time.
Yeah. And what I find fascinating
Yeah.
is that this document you've got here.
The 12-fact one.
Yeah.
It goes into how even simple things like fuel burn
Mm-hmm.
can shift that CG during a flight.
Oh, wow.
So you, as a pilot, right?
Yeah.
You're constantly adjusting, compensating,
Oh.
like a juggling act
Yeah.
to keep that CG within those safe limits.
So what happens if something unexpected happens?
Yeah.
Like mid-flight,
Yeah.
you need to make a change, like
Yeah.
a medical emergency.
Sure.
You got to land unexpectedly.
Yeah.
How do you factor that weight shift into your calculations on the fly like that?
That's when it gets really interesting.
That's where it gets kind of tricky, right?
Yeah.
Because it's not just about checking things before you take off.
Right.
You got to be ready for anything up there.
Absolutely.
What happens when things don't go according to plan?
Yeah, that's when a pilot's understanding of this stuff
Mm-hmm.
really becomes crucial.
Yeah,
You got to think on your feet
right.
and make the right decisions, even under pressure.
So how do they actually do that? This 12-10.pdf,
Right.
it talks about all these different ways to calculate weight and balance.
Yeah, it mentions computational methods,
Right.
graph methods, and table methods.
Are pilots actually doing all those calculations while they're flying?
Thankfully not while they're in the air.
Okay, good.
But they do need to know how to use all these different methods
Okay.
because each one has its own strengths and weaknesses,
Oh, I see.
depending on the situation.
I'm kind of curious about that table method.
Yeah.
It seems pretty simple on the surface.
It can be. Yeah.
Well, what if you have a really complicated cargo load,
Right.
a bunch of passengers, luggage, and then some random freight on top of that?
That's when the table method can get a bit messy.
Uh-huh.
And that's where the computational method comes in handy
Oh,
because
okay.
it lets you be a lot more precise
Oh, I see.
when you're dealing with a lot of different weights.
So let's say, for example,
Well-
we've got one of those small passenger planes like the one in the document,
Right.
and at the last minute, someone shows up with this, super heavy suitcase.
Okay.
How would a pilot use that computational method to figure out if they can still take off safely.
Well, it all boils down to something we call the moment.
The moment.
Yeah. Every single thing on that plane.
Okay.
The passengers, the bags, the fuel,
Right.
even the pilot.
Uh-huh.
Everything has a weight, right?
Mhm.
And it also has a specific distance from a reference point,
Okay.
which we call the datum.
Gotcha.
Now, you multiply that weight by that distance,
Okay.
and that gives you the moment for that particular item.
So it's not just about how much something weighs,
Right.
but also where it is on the plane.
Exactly. And with the computational method,
Yeah.
you can add up all those individual moments
Okay.
for everything on board.
Yeah.
And that gives you the total moment.
Okay.
And then you compare that total moment
Uh-huh.
to the aircraft's limits for its center of gravity.
So that's what determines whether it's safe to fly or not.
Exactly. If the total moment is within those limits, you're good to go.
Okay.
But if it's not,
Yeah.
then the pilot has to make some adjustments.
Like what kind of adjustments?
Well, maybe they need to move some cargo around
Uh-huh.
or rearrange the passengers.
Right.
Or in some cases, they might even have to tell that passenger with the heavy suitcase
Yeah.
that it can't come on board.
Wow. So it really is like a giant puzzle.
It kind of is, yeah.
But instead of trying to fit shapes together,
Right.
you're fitting weights and moments together to make
Yes.
sure the plane stays balanced
And within its limits.
and safe to fly.
Absolutely.
Wow, it really is amazing
It is, yeah.
how much responsibility pilots have.
Mhm.
They're not just, up there flying a plane.
Right.
They're managing this whole, intricate system.
It's a complex
Like
system.
every little thing matters.
Absolutely. Every pound, every inch.
And it's not just the pilots, right?
No, it's a team effort.
Yeah.
Everyone's involved.
Yeah, you've got the ground crew,
Right. You get the passengers.
the passengers, yep.
It's interesting, we always hear about those baggage weight limits at the airport.
Mm-hmm.
I never really thought about how that all ties back into
Yeah.
the weight and balance of the plane.
It all plays a role.
It all comes together to make sure everyone's safe.
Exactly. And it's amazing how this document,
This 12HAK10.pdf.
yeah, it really highlights how even those little things
Yeah.
can make a big difference.
Like a couple extra pounds here, a slight shift there.
Exactly. It all adds up.
I remember that example in the document
Oh, yeah.
about the pilot who had to delay a flight
Right.
because they forgot to factor in some equipment
It happens.
in the weight calculations.
It's a good reminder to
Yeah.
always be vigilant.
Because this isn't just a pre-flight thing, right?
No, not at all.
You got to be thinking about weight and balance
Throughout the entire flight.
constantly.
Yeah. It's always on your mind.
So as we're wrapping up here,
Yeah.
what's the one big takeaway? The one big takeaway.
You want our listeners to remember about weight and balance.
I think it's this. Weight and balance are fundamental to flying.
Okay.
They're not just numbers, right?
Yeah.
They're the forces that let us defy gravity.
Wow. That's a good way to put it.
It's pretty amazing when you think about it.
It is. It is. And
Yeah.
for anyone who wants to really dig into this, that 12hacksha10.pdf document,
Yeah.
it's an amazing resource.
It really is.
It's got all those real-world examples, explains those different calculation methods.
Yeah, and it even has some practice scenarios.
Oh, cool.
So you can test your understanding.
So whether you're a pilot, a student, or just someone who loves aviation.
This is a great resource for you.
So there you have it.
That's weight and balance.
Our deep dive into the world of weight and balance.
A crucial topic.
Remember, every pound matters.
Every inch counts.
Keep exploring, keep learning,
And most importantly,
keep those wings level.
absolutely.